It's Adam, Shane, and Amber from Rescue Michigan. Got our weekly live stream going tonight. We've got a special topic we're going to talk about. This is something that I think really needs to be discussed and isn't discussed often enough in politics, and that's prioritizing your time and choosing what battles you take on, what projects you get involved in, what kind of fights you make with the legislature or with politicians. There's so much out there happening now, and it's everywhere. I mean, every day we're bombarded with a million different things, stuff going on in the media, stuff going on in culture. You know, if you want to pick a policy fight, you can just choose from a few items like elections, lockdowns, censorship, maybe some of the issues we used to talk about, like abortion and gun rights and taxes and immigration. And it really doesn't stop. And especially for those of us who want to conquer the world, there's just no limit to it. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about at least the way, well, for one thing, at least the way I like to prioritize what battles we take on, because you have to be able to say no to people. And yeah, of course, Amber and Shane too, although you guys, part of your problem is you don't say no very often.
I don't say no. It's no problem.
And yeah, especially for people who are just getting started in politics too, because we see people come and go. And Shane, you've been in this as long as I have almost, and we've seen activists that, you know, set out to conquer the world and even built organizations, substantial ones, trying to do that, and then just burned out. And then when they disappeared, the organizations went with them. Stuff like that can happen all the time. But while we're still waiting, we got a few people coming up. I ought to at least let me remember to open up Rumble so I can actually see if there's people.
Hi, Michelle.
Oh, thank you for reminding me to go to the comments. I can see those comments too.
Hi, Penny.
We got a.
I've done something weird. I have no idea.
Yeah, you know, I for the first time in ages, I actually connected us to YouTube, and we got a YouTube commenter. Let me see. Can I ban this from? I can just block it.
I saw we were back on YouTube.
This is Russian, so
this is a really good YouTube video. It probably won't get us blocked.
Yeah, that's what I figured. The last few we've done, I thought, you know what, I'm not even going to bother, because you know, one more strike and we're done. So, yeah, hi to everybody in Facebook saying hi, and let me also go to our Rumble page just so I can.
Jay, we've actually been talking about you a lot, talking about school boards in Oxford, so we're gonna have to get connected. Hey, Dan.
I'm still getting on Rumble the waiting screen. Oh, there it goes. Okay, no, it's on now. All right, so for anyone on Rumble,
no.
Yeah, and by the way, I have gotten. What? I missed it. What's going on?
No, I told Jay we need to talk about school boards, and he goes, "No."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. School boards are so important.
Yeah.
And he knows that. I know you know.
Right. Well, anyway, how's you guys this week? It's been another week of madness.
Oh my gosh. So this is a good plug. Can I plug this really fast? So on my Tuesday was crazy, because guess what the Supreme Court did of Michigan? They said, yeah, you heard, right? Okay. So I'll tell all our listeners. So the petitions that have been circulating for Secure My Vote, the one that requires ID to vote, limits ballot boxes, you know, stops Secretary of State, I can go on and on. They said on Tuesday that if it didn't have a paid for circulation or non-paid for circulation boxes at the top to be checked, that you can't use it anymore. So we have probably hundreds of people circulating these petitions that are going to be null and void as of January 24th. So anything signed after January 24th is not going to count, unfortunately, because the Supreme Court ruled it effective like immediately, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my Tuesday. So my week was crazy. Wow. Just people with that.
So does it go by like the date that the circulator signs in that bottom right corner?
No, it goes by the date that the petition person signed, the signer of the petition. So you can sign it at the bottom. But and this is another question. If you have people that have signed it and then you have people that signed it after the 24th, you can cross their names off. So the whole petition isn't going to be thrown out. Just cross their names off.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm sure Secure My Vote and Unlock Michigan are thrilled about having to recall a bunch of petitions and have the organizers go find people and have them sign all over again. That's awful.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And by the way, folks, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. these petitions, since we're especially talking about choosing fights, are perfect right now. I mean, they're literally giving you a reason to go out and reach people on some of the biggest issues out there right now: election integrity and preventing future lockdowns, which, you know, it's so easy for people to forget how bad things were and how bad they could be once again. But because we're in an election year, the governor is suddenly playing nice again. But look what happened in Canada. They had an election. Their leaders weren't thrown out of Ottawa on a rail. And now they're having to have mass protests against their government because the people just told their government will put up with it. And so the government went right back and continued to do it. And cheers to the truckers. I mean, what a story.
Absolutely. Right.
What's going on out there. It reminded me of Operation Gridlock a lot when we heard the news that tens of thousands of truckers. I mean, that's like Operation Gridlock writ large. Mm-hmm. That was that big, for anyone in the audience that might not remember, that was that massive group that Michigan Conservative Coalition organized that was after the lockdowns and was like the first thing I think that really woke people up and got people going out of their homes again. Was when everyone just went to Lansing and everybody just broke the rules and was like, you know what, if we all do it together, we'll all be okay. And
I have to admit I did not go to that because I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time, and I was like, if I had to be stuck in traffic with them, I would that would be punishment for me.
Yeah, well, I was there for like 5 hours that day, and when I left Lansing, it was like the middle of the afternoon, and as I got on the highway to drive back, the traffic on the highway going into Lansing was backed up for like 3 straight miles, like all the way down 496, all the way onto I-96. It just went on and on and on. It was amazing. And that's what Ottawa is happening there right now. So,
how was your week, Shane?
Well, exhausting, but nothing too bad happened. I don't think so. Can't complain too much. Went to some good group meetings, and met some decent people. So it's nice to see all kinds of groups that are forming in the grassroots, and people not succumbing to the propaganda and being atomized. So it's nice to see that, and I do feel like there does seem to be a tide that's being turned with regards to the COVID rules and the vaccines. I think more people, even those in the middle who might believe some of the things that they're seeing in the mainstream media, even some of those people are starting to question what's going on now. So I think it's good news for Republicans heading into the midterms in Michigan. If the grassroots doesn't shoot ourselves in the foot and blow it, which is big if, but if that doesn't happen, I think we're going to have a good year this year, and we can rebuke a lot of the craziness that's been going on since at least March 2020.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it will be back if the governor wins another term. I mean, that'll be the end of freedom in a major way once that's legitimized. That you could enact the most radical deprivation of civil liberties in our state history and get away with it politically would be a shock. But we'll see. There is actually, we can't talk about it in this show because it's not time yet, but in 2 days, the financial reports are going to be coming out for all the candidates for governor, all the candidates for attorney general, all the candidates for secretary of state. And that will tell us a whole lot. So we'll probably do a special show about that once the numbers come out, and we can talk about what that says about the state of the campaigns, because running for those high offices takes a lot of money. And no matter who you are or what you say, you have to be able to raise those kind of resources. And most people can't. I can't. If I had $10 million or I could raise $10 million, I'd run for governor. But it ain't happening, folks. So we'll see where.
Speaking of rich people, I'll interject a topic, impromptu topic. We did hear, I believe, Perry Johnson. Jumping in. Perry Johnson. Okay. Perry Johnson is jumping in. He's got millions and millions to spend.
Billions. He's got billions.
He's a billionaire. Oh,
he's a billionaire. Mm-hmm.
So he's got a lot of money to spend there. So
he's running for governor.
He's running for governor
as a Republican. So it's going to be like a crazy knockdown, drag out primary, and you could see someone kind of emerging, getting winning the primary with less 30%, 35% of the vote.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
it's really wide open, and it's really getting crazy. And I think that actually might help some of the more grassroots oriented candidates. Since people with the less money, they're not going to have to. They're probably not going to have to get over the 50% threshold in order to win. So
Yeah. There's no
that will
runoff.
be interesting. Yeah, no runoff. So that'll be interesting to see how that all turns out.
Myron says he runs a global SEO consultant firm. That's the first thing I know about him. Then because I've never heard of the guy. So
He's a self-made billionaire, which is kind of cool.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what kind of campaign he runs. Marilyn, excuse me, says Perry Johnson, is he a real conservative Republican? We don't know. Actually, when I first saw the comment, I thought you were saying he is, and it's way too soon for me to say, that's for sure. Maybe if someone out there knows more, but we'll see what kind of campaign he runs. I mean, that'll tell us. So yeah, so that's going on. What else has happened this week? Oh, Spotify is apparently trying to, or they're trying to cancel Spotify now, I guess, because they have the temerity to allow free speech on their platform and allow factual statements from Joe Rogan and his doctors and experts that he has on as guests. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that other than I guess we'll see how that plays out. I would imagine Spotify has quite a legal claim against Neil Young, and apparently now, is it, what's his name? Is Prince Andrew the pedophile or the one that married Meghan Markle? I can never remember who's who. Harry, I think. Harry's the one that married Meghan Markle. Andrew's
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So.
Yeah, I know, Spotify, supposedly when Joe Rogan, negotiated that deal, it gave him quite a bit of creative freedom and leeway.
Yeah.
So if they censor him or if they boot him, he's going to get all that money. And plus, then I think that would open up, his ability to actually create a podcast streaming platform himself, because he's got Elon Musk on speed dial and other people who could potentially raise a lot of money for that project. So it's kind of like what I see Spotify is in kind of the same situation with Rogan that Fox News is with Tucker Carlson, where if they get rid of him, if they throw him under the bus, if they cave to the pressure, they could be super big, way bigger as an independent entity than they are now, kind of tied to a corporate giant. So I don't see Spotify pulling the plug on Rogan anytime soon, if ever.
Yep. All right. Well, anyway, we're at almost 9:15. We got a good decent number of people watching. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how we choose battles. And I guess there's a few different aspects of this. One is what your own personal passions are. Another is the timing of things. And another one, and I think the most important thing ultimately for me, when I look at what different opportunities we have, because these are decisions we have to make all the time. We can't put out emails every single day telling people do this and do this and do this, or people are going to unsubscribe. They don't want that kind of stuff in their inbox. So I got to pick 2 or 3 things. And what our main criterion is, I mean, number one, we always want to stay true to our organizational mission, but the other thing is we actually look at what is the opportunity just in making the fight of doing something, not just how great is it if we win, but what do we gain? How does our political advantage improve just by making the fight? And we actually have a system of doing this. Like we look at, I asked 4 major questions. One is just by making the fight, whether we win or we lose, are we going to bring more people into our organization? Are we going to improve our membership? Are we going to grow our ability to do more things? The next question is, are we going to help our friends and allies out doing this stuff? Or are we going to isolate ourselves and put them in compromising situations? And then the third question is, are we going to hurt our enemies and their allies by making the fight? Just by making the fight, even if we don't win. Forcing Democrats into uncomfortable positions like endorsing critical race theory, things like that. And then the fourth thing is the actual policy value of the fight. Those are the things that we look at. And a lot of issues don't really score as well as people would think on some things. As just one example, and again, I'm not trying to say this to disparage any other organization, But like gun rights, for example, doesn't hurt our enemies to make those fights calling for right to carry. Now, that's not to say that's not a good policy, and that's not to say it's not worthwhile. If you're a gun rights organization, that's probably the best fight you can make. But think about the anti-gun people. They will raise money off of they're coming to pass right to carry. They're going to do away with permits and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. Same way with the abortion issue. And again, that doesn't mean life isn't worth fighting for. It means it just doesn't score well on that particular thing. So, I'm looking for things that are going to put the Democrats in really difficult situations, defending things they can't defend, like not requiring ID to vote, because that's a real unpopular position. And the more the Democrats have to say, we need to require you don't have to show ID to vote, it confuses the middle. Their base doesn't really get it. None of them actually have any problems voting, and they all know it. These are kind of populist issues that pull people away. So, that's one thing I look at. And again, that does not mean that gun rights are not worth fighting for. It doesn't mean that life isn't worth fighting for. But there are groups out there that fight exclusively on those issues. So do I want to be the first group or the next group in that? So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but that's one of the things I look into is what's this going to do for our organization.
Shane?
Yeah, it's very important to pick your battles, and like on the issue of election integrity. A big winner is to talk about voter ID, especially when you have a voter ID petition that's out.
Yeah,
that's a very obvious one. That's going to appeal to people outside of our echo chamber of people who believe that there was serious election fraud in 2020. Those people are our base, but there's a lot of people out there who probably support election integrity, but they believe, because of what they've seen in media propaganda and because of a lot of disreputable people pushing election conspiracy type information that's just turned out to be bunk over and over again, so that they're probably thinking that a lot of what Republicans are talking about may not have any basis in reality. But if Democrats are put on the offensive and they are arguing against voter ID, arguing against the private funding arguing for private corporations funding crucial election infrastructure. If they see things like this, then they might think like, oh, these Democrats are up to something nefarious. But by becoming more insular, focusing on an issue that voting machines is a very important issue, but it's esoteric. It's difficult to understand. They don't make it easy to understand exactly what's in these different machines. But it's hard to talk about this issue with a person who's in the middle without their eyes glossing over. And so focusing solely on that, is that going to grow your group? You may get a core of people who are already hardcore and preach that choir over and over again, but is it really going to grow the group and bring more people in and get Democrats evicted from office, get better Republicans elected? Not necessarily. So you have to be very careful and strategic when you go about selecting issues, and you should always be growing your organization, not preaching to the choir. Have people in your organization bringing in more people, more money, more talent, and focusing on the issues that will always be achieving those goals.
Yeah.
So Marilyn in the chat really fast said where to sign. And Marilyn, I don't know where you live, but I'm the Oakland County Republican Party office off of Woodward in Bloomfield Hills has petitions, and I'm open. We're open from like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. And if you're not in Oakland County, you can go to securemivote.org and find where your closest place is for you to go and sign the petition.
Yeah, there you go, guys. Securemivote.org. That's where you can find where all the locations are around the state. And by the way, I think I mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again. They're hiring people. If you want to get involved and actually even get paid to, that's a pretty nice gig right there. I think, and actually this is a nice contrast. I saw Marilyn earlier had said if if we don't have, we need full forensic audits now, or else Whitmer will be back. Well, I mean, I got two problems with that. One is we can't get full forensic audits now. And two is I'm not sure a full forensic audit will somehow stop her. I mean, that's on the assumption that having an audit will show things and then lead the legislature to change laws somehow, which they can only do over the governor's veto if they can get 300-some thousand petition signatures. Well, there's what Secure My Vote is right there. That's the proposal to, Amber, you give the rundown because you're good at it. You've got it memorized down pat, the things that Secure My Vote does.
Okay. It requires ID to vote, limits ballot boxes, stops the Secretary of State from mass mailing out absentee ballot applications, and stops private funding like Zuckerbucks from coming into our elections and cities and swaying them.
Yeah, there you go, folks. I mean, those are 5 major things that we can get done right now. So going to that other thing I mentioned earlier, talking about timing and seasons, these petitions are out and they have a ticking clock. They have to get these signatures within 6 months. So, you know,
Right.
you can get paid to change policy.
And when we say 6 months, we are talking like mid-March. We're looking to get all these in. So we only have about a month and a half left to get all the ones we want in. And if you go sign them, pick some up, and then go get people to sign them. Like Shane and I were at an event last night, and I was walking out and I saw a guy with a Trump hat on, and I go, "Hey, you want to sign my petition?" And so I got his whole table to sign, and he took 5 forms, and he's going to get people to sign. I gave him my card, told him to send it back, and that's how we get this passed.
Yeah. And then when we get the signatures, we get the legislature on record because they have to actually pass it into law. And they say they already have the votes, which would be outstanding because that's going to mean all of those Republicans that vote for it will now be held to it through the election. And it's easy for politicians to change their mind on things, folks. I mean, if you collect the signatures you would need for the forensic audit and you get 2 Republicans in one chamber saying, I'm going to vote no, they don't have the votes to pass it. If they don't have the votes to pass it, then they won't even have a vote on it and they won't even be on record. And it means by the time it even gets to the ballot, because if they don't pass it, it goes to the next November ballot. By then, all the evidence for 2020 will be destroyed. That's already 2 years after. The law only requires they hold them for 22 months. They'll be gone at that point. So, yeah, I really strongly encourage people. I mean, if you're looking for an issue that gets people fired up, and I actually did a survey with a grassroots organization, not my own, but with this national one. And sure enough, our members, and these are obviously the more politically active conservatives, but their number 1 issue was election integrity. The number 2 issue was vaccine mandates and things like that. And the number 3 issue was censorship. Those are the biggest ones. I mean, right there. And there's different ways, by the way, if you are not sure like what you think is the best issue to take on at any given time, sometimes it helps to actually put a number on things like those 4 questions I talked about earlier. I'll actually go from +10 to -10. What do I think this would score? And that's obviously subjective and it's kind of guesswork, but at least putting the numbers down as you can best envision them gives you something. But you can also poll people. You know, you can do a survey. You guys are going to start getting surveys real soon from the people running for Attorney General, Secretary of State. They're going to start polling everybody who their candidate preferences are, you know, all that kind of stuff. But anyone with a list can do that. You know, an email list can just create a survey on whatever, send out an email blast and say, hey, we want your opinion, and see what the results are. Oh, I've got these new headphones and they keep coming out of my ears. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to the headphones. I don't know. We'll see.
I miss seeing your headphones.
Did you prefer them? I don't know. Oh, I want to at least give earbuds a try. Some of the shows we've done, especially the New Year's one, my head actually started to hurt from having the headphone on for 7 hours. But yeah. I don't know.
About also, you can plug the poll workers.
Yeah, the poll worker project, that's another outstanding one, folks. I mean, this is getting, I mean, again, first of all, you get paid, which is very rare in politics for them to be paying jobs. It's only a 1-day job, but they pay well. I think I got $400 or something for 1 day's work in an election in Detroit.
In all fairness, though, with the private funding being taken away, you're not going to get that extra boost. But
I think first of all, I think we will, because apparently Michigan said that the money they got from the feds to administer the election, none of them actually needed the Zuckerbucks.
Wow.
That was all just cream for their quote unquote voter registration drives, which Democrats
Nice.
all know. And all of these elected officials know that anything, and any political operative knows that voter registration drives always benefit Democrats, because their people are, as a rule, among those that are least likely to vote. Young people, felons, and aliens, legal and illegal, they can't vote unless they just become naturalized citizens, and then they can. And all these people are demographically known to support Democrats. So all that nonsense, like from MTV's Rock the Vote, we just want to get young people to vote. All of it's about voting for Democrats. They're all partisan operations, but they get to get away with it just because it's a policy that happens to benefit them. But they all know that's exactly what they're doing. Anyway, rant over on that one. But yeah, some of the things I would suggest too, like, I certainly love seeing what's going on in Canada. Anything that's happening in foreign countries, I just tune out. I have no control over what happens in foreign countries. So it's cool to see in the news. Other than that,
Shane, please tell us how you stay focused.
I stay focused. Good question. I mean, I don't know. Lots and coffee, drinking coffee constantly to stay focused, I guess.
I meant on a project. Like, how do you pick projects that you want to take on? How do you focus on?
Well, it's all centered around making people active and engaged and aware from the localist levels upward. So that's what it all is generally focused around, is that the kind of bottom up resistance that we need, and then just trying to add another tentacle, so to speak, from there on the operation to make it more effective. So, basically everything that I'm doing now is very similar to what I've been doing since I started getting involved in 2012. It's just become more sophisticated. I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And it's just, a constant refinement process so that you're not wasting your time and effort. Because back in the day when I was with, the Patriot movement, when I was more aligned with the Patriot movement and libertarianism, just so many dead ends, so many people who were complete waste of time. And you see a lot of people like that now kind of in the new grassroots. So a lot of it's just avoiding people like that and not being sucked into their bullshit, and they'll waste your time, they'll waste your money, they'll waste your energy. And just, avoiding those toxic people is really key.
That's huge. Yeah.
Another thing I would say too is you got to be very careful about getting involved in candidates' campaigns, because first of all, often they don't win. And what comes after that? Sometimes a campaign can start a movement, but more often when the campaign's over, they go off in a huff and are never heard from again.
Yeah.
And that happens countlessly. And the other thing that happens often is they get elected and then they change, and they're not the person that you just spent the last year bending over backwards to get to Lansing or Washington. So, and that's almost inevitable sometimes. The fights I think are often the most important are going to be legislative in nature, where we're actually putting pressure on politicians and actually punishing them for doing the wrong thing. Because that's the only way they change, is when there's actually a price to pay for bad behavior. One of the things I think, and I would say, I think categorically, Rescue Michigan from day one, we've said our two biggest issues are going to be elections, lockdowns, and COVID-related stuff, because those absolutely have to be addressed. And if they can get away with it, they're going to keep getting away with it. So, that's a fight where we can put the pressure on lawmakers, because we're going to have a record of everything they've done or have failed to do in the last 2 years. And we can say, look, you guys didn't pass any meaningful election measures unless they get the secure my vote done. And for everything else, there's all these other issues. We just, by the way, I'll put in a plug. We've got our fundraising event coming up a week from Thursday. So less than 2 weeks away. And we've just announced our keynote speaker is going to be Representative Steve Cara, who is one of the best lawmakers in Lansing right now and running for Congress. And I was looking, we did an email about it today. And as I looked at the voting record, MichiganVotes.org gives you this cool search feature where you can look up the number of times any lawmaker went against the majority of their own party. And Steve Cara, in 1 year and 1 month in office, has voted against the Republican majority 280 times.
That's awesome.
Pretty impressive. John Riley's number was 700 some, but that was for 5 years in office. So I think Carr's actually got him beat. And that, you know, that might not always be, you know, a perfect indicator, but I mean, there have been a lot of lawmakers in Lansing that their number is 0. So figure that one out.
Wow.
But you know, I assure you folks, the Republican Party is far from perfect, and they voted on a lot of bad bills over the past year. Most of them are, you know, important. And here again, you know, you could pick out any of the 1,000+ bills that are going on in Lansing right now and complain about one or the other. We're going to be doing a video later this week talking about how to analyze legislation. And one of the elements of that, too, is figuring out if it's actually got any legs. Because a lot of bills people introduce and then never do anything with. Like they're dead the moment they are introduced. And yeah, those are not things worth getting fired up about. So
Interesting. Yeah, I don't stay focused at all, so this is a really hard topic for me.
Well, you know, the worst thing is, and we all have our, I mean, everybody has problems with this. Is social media too is so addictive, and it just pulls you in every which way. Like, and I rarely actually do our posts on Facebook. I do run our Twitter feed. The nice thing about Twitter though is it's so easy. You see something, retweet, put in, you know, one sentence, and you're done. But it doesn't really take up a ton of time. But I think a lot of people, I mean, I get so many emails, and some people send emails, like multiple emails a week, and I know we do, but their emails are just like links to news stories or links to watch this video. And folks, first of all, your readers are not stopping their day to watch your 90-minute documentary on whatever. they're just not.
Unless it's deep rig.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a few of those. There's a new one. Dinesh D'Souza has a video coming out about the election.
Wasn't his like about the? Or yeah, it's about the people stuffing the remote ballot boxes or something like that.
The stuff that really happened.
I haven't seen the preview. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I know Dinesh is, you know, he I think has a little bit higher of a standard than a lot of the people who are producing these documentaries. So I would think that it'd be at least decently informative, but you know, maybe we will do a podcast where we kind of watch it and critique it at some point.
Yeah, we'll see. One thing I remember about his other videos is they're really polemic. I mean, they don't do well with swaying the moderates because they come across as intensely partisan. So we'll see. But
yeah, and he releases them as vehicles during election years to help get out the vote for Republicans too.
Yeah,
because I remember he released it was 2012 Obama's Damnation of America. That was one of them, and that you know that gained a lot of traction among the choir. But did that have any impact of converting one person against Obama? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing when you're doing a project is, you know, figure out the goal state, work your way back from here's what the steps we need to do to get it done, and then, you know, as best you can, set yourself focused solely on that. I think one of the emails I quoted Vince Lombardi saying success requires a singularity of purpose. You might be able to do 2 things, but when you get to like 3 and 4, you're constantly trading off one thing for another all the time. And it's like, if you're going to do one, if you're going to do something, you want to do it well. And you don't want to leave a project hanging, because that people do that too. I've seen that where they start something, then they decide something else is more important, and they never come back to the first thing. And we got to work on that too, by the way. You know, we came out in the beginning of last year, we've got these 7 bills introduced on election integrity. And, you know, we've been doing one thing and another thing and another thing and another thing. We've gotten some legislative victories under our belt, so we're glad about that. But meanwhile, our bills haven't passed committee yet. So look for some more fire coming out on that in the next few weeks to come, because so far the legislature's still done basically nothing important on election integrity.
Yeah, we did get that one committee hearing from Ann Boleyn, which I guess is better than nothing. But you know, I'm not expecting Ann to do the right thing. And if she does it's going to be like just token lip service, try to get people off her back. You know, she's not one who seems to care too much about getting to the bottom of these issues or exposing, interesting information in committee hearings that may show the extent of the fraud that happened. It doesn't seem like she's going to ever do that. And I remember she was kind of dismissive during the committee hearing for Representative Paquette's bill too. So,
Yeah.
But if there's enough pressure, if she feels like her not moving on these bills will mean the end of her political career, then that's probably the only thing that would get her to move.
Speaking of that, folks, the most important day in politics isn't election day. It's the candidate filing deadline. And for all of the threats we make to our lawmakers, when that filing deadline comes down, if you don't have a good candidate for your local seats, your state rep seat, your state Senate seat, your seats for everything else, guess what? You've lost. You're 90% stuck with whoever, 100% stuck with who's ever on the ballot, and 90% chance that's basically been predetermined by the makeup of the district. You're either getting a Democrat or a Rhino, unless you've got a champion. So that's another thing, and that goes to the timing and seasons of things, folks. It's already pretty late to be looking for candidates, and if you want to recruit a candidate, watch a candidate recruitment video and go out and knock on some doors and find someone, because in a lot of these seats,
to get signatures and then ask them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I had an Unlock Michigan petition. I was out knocking on doors in my precinct, and I found a guy who's looks perfect to be running for office. That's the way we do it, folks. Michelle says she would love if we discuss the difference between activist group missions and then the actual state party, county, and district groups missions, which well, that's your guys' bailiwick, since you're a county executive director and Shane's the district chair, and I'm neither of those things. But we're happy to weigh in on that. I know. What do you guys say?
I'll go first. Yeah, I think district party generally, what you want to do is promote some good events, make some money, give it to candidates who are like-minded. You can have the most effect at the local levels. Support different grassroots endeavors, and get provide a neutral forum for the candidates, so that people can come in and meet various candidates at in a district or state level. So it's just a lot of that kind of stuff, and then making sure that you have different subcommittees that are focused on crucial issues that matter to the community or to the Republican activist base. That's pretty much what we're doing in the 11th district. It's pretty, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to do grassroots politics the way it should be done. And also that encompasses hitting, Democrats, hitting, exposing, our Congresswoman is Haley Stevens, pretty far leftist, likes to masquerade as more of a moderate. So we try to do what we can to make sure that people see how radical she is, doing rallies and different, campaigns and getting the word out and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a grind to rebuild the grassroots, get these candidates elected, and be Republicans in the best sense of that word.
That was good. As far as the county, I think it is the county's directive to kind of give support to the districts in our county, the districts that are in our county, give them a platform, promote them. I think that a county party is responsible to keep track of the elections in its county and know the school board members' races, as well as the city council races and the county commissioner races, and kind of have a pulse on that. So when people need the information, and we can blast out the information of who's the good candidate to vote for, I think the county party is really, really important in that aspect. I know that OCRP hasn't been fully utilized in the past for its potential, but I'm hoping that we can rebuild that through me being executive director and being more of a light and a center for the districts to go to, and kind of a base just of knowledge. So I think it plays a good supporting role to the districts, and but I think that it also has to play a leadership role in candidate recruitment.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned school boards, because until this past year, I'm not aware of any county parties that were really doing that. And at least in principle, they're supposed to be nonpartisan races. Although the reality that people are realizing is all races are partisan. They either just pretend they're not. Although it's funny with the Michigan Supreme Court, it's supposedly a nonpartisan seat, but yet the county or the state Democrat and Republican parties pick who their nominees are, even though they go on the ballot as nonpartisan.
Isn't that weird? That's so weird.
I mean, it's just, that's the admission right there that of course these things are all partisan. But,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, in theoretically, Michelle, the purpose of the parties is just to win. That's all they're supposed to do. And they're supposed to be neutral about it. But, part of the reason why I always tell people to get involved in your parties is because if you don't, they often won't be neutral. And when we first got involved in politics, the state party was manipulating the rules and weighing in on who their favorite candidates are. A district chair will often have a preferred candidate running for Congress, that kind of stuff. And an important part of being involved in the party is also just to make sure the process is fair and that all voices are fairly heard. But go ahead. Oh, Amber, you're muted.
Oh, good. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I'm at my county party, I'm wearing my county party hat. When I'm outside that, I'm wearing my Rescue Michigan hat, and it's okay to be involved in multiple things. I would also say, though, don't be like a certain county chair that comes to mind who openly says, I have my favorite candidates and anyone who doesn't support them is committing heresy. You're not supposed to actually even be like that, let alone say it out loud.
Anybody that primaries these people are just like, what?
Yeah.
But talking about that, Michelle is running for state representative of District 58. So if you're near District 58, Michelle Smith's amazing, and I'm going to make that plug because I love her and I know that.
Where is the 58th?
It's Macomb, Sterling Heights.
Very good.
Isn't it part of Oakland though too?
I should know that. I think
I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's Troy and Sterling Heights.
Thank you. You're right. You're right because of it's Troy and Sterling Heights.
Jay asks, is there an effort to have township trustee positions become partisan? Jay, I think they are.
He says there is an effort.
Oh, there is an effort to become partisan. I think it varies by county. I think every county, maybe even township, gets to decide how they do that. In my township, it is a partisan office. We do have elections in primaries for nominating for the township boards. So if that's not the case where you are, that might be a county thing, or it might even be a township thing, how they decide they do that.
So I'll tackle. Michelle says it's Warren, Sterling Heights, Utica, and Shelby for State House District 58. Thank you, Michelle. Sorry, my house is noisy. Fred says, can you comment on the Let My Kids Learn opportunity? Oh boy. I should be better versed on it. I'm not. It is where you can put money into a savings account essentially and use it to fund private school and then have it as a tax write-off, which is good because you are taking money away from the government as a tax write-off. And it is the beginning, I have been told, of where the tax dollars follow the child, but I don't know enough to speak on it right now. But it's a good initiative to sign.
Yeah, well, if you have your kids in private education, you're paying double.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're paying for their education directly in full, and then you're also paying for the socialist schools too, which I mean, the whole notion of public education being taxpayer funded is to make the people whose kids are not in school pay for everybody else's, which that's one without kids I don't personally care for, but that's the concept at least. But and the questions I don't have the answer to for Fred is, are they funded? Do they have the time to do it? Especially with ballot proposals, the timing and seasonality of everything is very sensitive. So I don't know the answer to that question. But that's something that's an important consideration. I mean, the reason why we were plugging the Secure My Vote thing in part is because we know they have raised the money they need to be successful. And that's a very high standard to meet. If you don't have at least several $1 million, you are not going to have the resources.
Well, I'm going to say something really unpopular here, but DeVos is funding Let My Kids Learn.
Oh, good. Then it's a done deal. Now, do you know offhand, is it a citizen-initiated law or is it a constitutional amendment?
It's a citizens initiative.
Okay, so it might be something they can actually get done. Cool. Well, good that DeVos is doing something useful for a change. But that's a whole other story.
Quasi-useful.
I mean, that's substantial. Because a lot of parents are pulling their kids out of public schools now that they're seeing what they're doing. And the reason why more don't is because they can't afford it. So, giving them a huge tax write-off to be able to have, their children going to their own program of their choice. I think that is a good thing. And that's also a thing that, going back to my point earlier about hurting your enemies just by making the fight. This is a position Democrats have a really lousy time defending. We demand all these people send their kids to public school. And how dare anyone who has their kids in private school doesn't get to get their money back, or put their own, has to fund everybody else's kids that they don't get to see a dime of. So, yeah, I think it's a fairly good fight. Michelle says, don't let DeVos doing it deter you from it. It's a solid petition. It's actually 2 petitions, one to change the law and one to change the tax law. Yeah,
She's right.
I mean, I fully agree with that. Go after the issues, not just the people who are funding them, because, people have funded, bad people have funded good policies and good people have funded bad policies. So I've seen it both ways. So there you go. Ed says, if they're following the same curriculum, what's the difference? I don't believe it. Well, I think to his point, there's actually, and I don't know exactly what Let My Kids Learn has as far as the requirements of education, but that's a big failure of a lot of states have been talking about, like doing vouchers and things like that, where the agenda of a lot of these private schools is still dictated in large part by public policy, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, but in many ways it is. But I still think it doesn't make it completely not worthwhile. It's still a step in the right direction, and I don't necessarily always think that just because something isn't the whole enchilada, you should oppose it. The left certainly doesn't operate that way. They'll demand a mile, but they'll take an inch, and then they'll come back for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and they know someday they're going to get there. They're not like, they don't come out and just say, we want to ban all guns right now. No, they just say, we want to just do the sensible things. We just want to have universal gun registration, and we just want to have red flag laws and all this other stuff. Folks, when they passed the Brady law, the first thing out of the activist said, well, okay, that was a nice solid start of a step. Now we want more. Now we want an assault weapons ban. I mean, that's the way it goes all the time.
We just want equality in marriage, but now we're showing your kids gay porn books and have drag queen trannies coming in to groom them at libraries.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of that story, by the way, there was a story this week, and I do want to put this on screen just as make a point, if you will, about rigorousness. And, folks, we've got into some controversies here at Rescue Michigan over the past year. And, a lot of people have criticized things I've said without actually criticizing the substance of what I said. Just we said something I didn't like, so therefore you're obviously on the wrong team. There's a funny couple of bad stories that came out in the last couple of weeks. One was a story from Michigan. There was an allegation brought before the county commission, I think it was in Midland, where a parent said, "I've heard that they have litter boxes in our schools for children identify as cats to pee in." And this went ricocheting all over the conservative universe. And of course, it turned out that was not true. At least the superintendent says it's not true. And so, that's the kind of thing we really try not to repeat. And in fact, as soon as I can find it, I'll show you what we actually said, because, I don't say things if I can't back them up. So what did I say about this at the time? Hold on, I'm still going back and farther. Let's see. Where is it? I'm getting there. Well, anyway, the other story was, I think it was like in Arizona or something. Or there's a teacher who went out and said, "I just got fired from being a substitute teacher because I wouldn't meow back at a student." So there was like 2 furry things that happened in the last, in just the last week or so. Okay, I think I missed it. Let me try this. Sorry. Anyway.
Love the sound effects, Adam.
Sorry, yeah, that's my search function screwing up. Anyway, what I said was unverified, but it'd be amazing if it was true. When that first story came out of Midland. I don't repeat things if I can't verify them, folks. So if you want to get mad at us over whatever, I'm sticking by our commitment to rigorousness, and I hope you all do the same.
Yes.
Because when garbage information gets around everywhere, it hurts us. It embarrasses us. It gives our enemies ammunition. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, is disinformation. So anyway, just wanted to bring up that point. I guess it's a side topic, but that's another thing too, folks. I mean, everyone out there is trying to, they view education as, an important part of what we do. I will say, I think education is not the problem. Mobilization is the problem. We have too many people sitting around doing nothing and thinking that talking is going to somehow save our country. Information is not the problem.
You know what I'm finding too, and this is me, so I like to tell people what to do, which isn't very popular apparently, but I say you need to talk to people. You need to send that text message. You need to call these people, and people are like, oh, I don't do phone calls. Well, Adam, yeah. you told me that too, I don't do door knocking. Well, that's how you get out in the community. That's how you change stuff. You don't just sit there and talk to people that are already agreeing with you.
Yeah. Well, and to your point about me, I would say, we all have our strengths and
yeah.
our weaknesses. And that's where when you get organized, you'll find certain people have different talents and certain things they're better at and that they prefer doing. By the way, I did find it. Here it is. Here's what oh, wait, hold on. I got to share the screen. Oops, hold on. Just to say I was right.
Of course, that's what you live for sometimes.
I like
that's
being
the whole
right.
Point of rescue.
Verified, but absolutely shocking if true. Allegedly, it's a school in Midland, which is a Republican-leaning small city. Like, it's already smelled wrong to me. It's like Midland is the last place this would have happened in, and sure enough.
No, anyway, you're amazing. You were very honest, Adam. You're like honest Abe.
Yeah, but anyway, to that, don't get me started on Abe Lincoln. But this is a battle I won't fight on this program. Let's prioritize here, people. But no, seriously though, getting back to that original point though, it's important that you figure out what different people in the organization are good at. One thing that's another important matrix is leaders have to plan and prepare and act, and people usually don't like at least one of those things. Academics are the types that always want to plan. They always want to write another paper about why the Federal Reserve is unsustainable, and there's a million of them out there. We don't need another one. And some people tend towards preparations, and those are like bureaucrats and event planning types, like Amber. And then some people like to be in the execution stage all the time, without any plans or preparation. They go, we want to do this and this, we're going to do this and this, and that's the politician's mentality.
Like Shane,
like Rocky.
Oh,
there are people that all they want to do is one thing.
See that when I'm on the podcast with you?
Well, okay, Rocky. I said that. Amber doesn't agree with it. So I'm being honest with you, buddy.
We're gonna rein in. If you're watching, we're gonna rein in this Adam character. He's out of control.
No, but I mean, there's a lot of people like this.
You're right.
Gary Glenn was like that when I worked for him in the legislature. He wanted to do a million things at once. And politicians often are like that.
That's a good question, Mark.
But you'll notice this in your activists. You'll have the people that like to put in the work of making an event successful. You'll have the people that want to write the papers and hopefully direct them to like writing useful things like letters to the newspaper if they get published that can have an effect, things like that. And the people that are the ones that execute, the ones that come to the events and want to speak, those kind of types. So, I'm sorry, we're going to Mark's question?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, Mark asked how we can make poll workers stronger and more effective. Training and quantities. I mean, that's another thing that we're pushing. In fact, I'll put that on the screen. The MI election protection team. We have now recruited, I think, well over 300 people for this project now. You can sign up at rescuemichigan.com.
But we want 5,000.
5,000. Well, I should say Rescue Michigan personally has recruited more than 300. The aggregate total, I think, is now over 2,000. So we're making great progress, but we got more to go. This is a big one, folks. And and Mark, by the way, so poll workers, he did say poll workers, and say poll workers are one thing, poll challengers are another. Between the two, I would say poll workers are even more important because poll workers actually administer the election. All a poll challenger can really do is point out if a poll worker is not doing their job properly. Being a poll worker, you actually are the one doing the job yourself. So become a poll worker, folks. It's a better gig and it pays. So please, if you haven't already signed up, sign up. If you have already signed up, recruit more people. That's another thing about priorities. Force multipliers. Things that by being effective multiply your ability to be effective. One thing I always tell people is don't just sign the petition, get a few more to sign. You know, if you're going to go to a fundraiser for a candidate you support, bring a couple of friends. Recruitment is an ongoing thing. The bottom line is we need more grassroots leaders. We need more poll workers. We need all of our people growing the movement. And again, that involves getting out there, knocking on doors, networking in the real world. That's the way that we connect to more people and do more things.
Awesome. And before we wrap up, I'd like to add one thing that from Trump's rally yesterday I thought was interesting, is that Trump's floating the idea of giving a pardon to January 6th protesters who've been caught up in the federal probe that's heinously unconstitutional and Soviet-style show trials against people, many of whom were just idly walking around the Capitol and didn't engage in any violence. So Trump is floating the idea of pardoning the January 6th protesters if he gets back in office. I think that this is like an issue that is one of those wedge issues that can really pay off, because this is the sort of thing that, like Lindsey Graham was all pissed off about what Trump said. These, many of these rhino Republicans have come out and endorsed, a Soviet-style crackdown, a war on terror against the January 6th protesters, and just said the most despicable things about these people. All everyone of whom was a hardcore patriot who loves their country, besides the feds who were embedded in there. I don't think those guys love their country, but all the people down there protesting against election fraud sure did. And this is an issue. If you say justice for the January 6th protesters, why aren't you speaking out? Why aren't you speaking out about the ways that they're getting mistreated behind bars? Many of these people are getting literally the Abu Ghraib treatment just because they were in or around the Capitol, just walking around, got let in. I mean, they released the video and it showed cops opening the doors, stepping aside, and people just marauding in, just walking in, and most of whom were not committing any violence at all. And these people are being treated like they're being treated like they're a terror threat worse than ISIS or worse than Al Qaeda. And people, and January 6th has been used as a Reichstag fire type event for the Biden regime to take all kinds of insane powers. And they're having their hearings, and the January 6th Commission is they're working to make people make examples of people like MIGOP co-chair Michonne Maddock, because she participated in the signing off on the alternate slate of electors while the election was still disputed. They're trying to make the case now that that's a felony of many decades, so that another election is stolen, people will know that there are harsh and terrifying consequences for standing up and doing what's right. So putting Republicans on the defensive on this issue, it's not just one of the top issues, but it will pay off. These bureaucrats, they really will show how contemptuous they are for the American people when pressed on this issue. And the only people who are really talking about it are, Gates, Taylor Greene, Trump now. There's a few others who've spoken out, Louis Gohmert being one of them, and Paul Gosar. So there's a handful who have spoken out. They're the cream of the crop. But so many others are cowards. They don't want to speak out, and they secretly harbor, or not so secretly harbor, an extreme amount of contempt with the idea of the people rising up. So hammering them on this issue, putting them on the spot on this issue will pay dividends. And I know that on the 11th Congressional District, that's one of the priorities of for our resolution drives coming up is a Justice for January 6th resolution. So we're going to try to push that around the country as well, because this is an issue that is, it's as paramount as, fighting back against COVID, lockdowns, if they can use January 6th and use it as an example to bring the federal war on terror home, we're going to be seeing atrocities that, the people of Yemen and Afghanistan and Iraq have seen at the hands of the military-industrial complex come to our shores, and the dark realizations that people like Ron Paul and many civil libertarians said. As soon as 9/11 happened, there's a Patriot Act. This is going to be used against domestic patriots. So that's what will happen unless, the Justice for January 6th movement really takes off, and that we can get many politicians coming out in favor of their civil liberties, in favor of their ending their mistreatment, no more cruel and unusual punishment for people who haven't even been convicted of any crime yet. So that is, I think, and the top, that's an issue that needs to be, every grassroots patriot needs to be hammering that issue and getting as many Republican politicians on the record where they stand on it.
Yeah, I think people have to do it smartly, though, and cautiously, and Trump should too. Certainly, and you're right. What's going on in those prisons is absolutely horrific, and the Justice Department's selective prosecution of them is also, in my opinion, a terrible crime. But you also got, I mean, if Trump comes out and says, I'm gonna pardon everyone involved in January 6th, the media gonna have a field day with that, because that Jacob Chansley guy wasn't exactly a normal patriot. He was going to BLM events as a BLM supporter. I saw some article on Gateway Pundit where they're talking. It was a guy who had written a letter about what they had done to him. He had, I guess, been beaten within an inch of his life. And I looked up who is the guy, and he had, turns out, a pretty bad long criminal history, including some violent crime himself. I mean, they're going to find, in that large number of people caught up in the dragnet, the very worst people to make examples out of. So,
it might be better. Yeah, it might be better just to focus mainly on Ashley Babbitt and what happened to her, how she was executed, and it was just to send an example to the other protesters that we will kill you. This is sacred, our sacred ground, and if you come in here, we're going to kill you and execute you, and no due process, and no real investigation afterwards. Guy was cleared, so maybe focusing on Ashley Babbitt might be the best way to go about it. But yeah, there definitely needs to be more Republicans speaking out against the tremendous injustice that's happening right now to the J6 protesters.
Fred says, I'm embarrassed that the Michigan GOP has not moved from square one to expose election fraud. When are we going to expose Wayne County? Well, Fred, the Michigan GOP has, I think, essentially bankrolled the entire Secure My Vote campaign, which is actually trying to stop the vote fraud. So that's substantial. The Senate report on the election was an atrocity, but that's not the whole of the Michigan Republican Party. And this is what I was getting at in that email I sent out today. We are proud to announce that Michonne Maddox is going to be a speaker at our fundraiser coming up the week from Thursday. Someone who Trump himself credits with having won in Michigan. The fact that when the Michigan GOP was doing nothing for Trump and trying to treat him as a pariah, even after he was the nominee, it was Michonne's organization that got him over the finish line in 2016. It's not Michonne's fault what the Senate Oversight Committee says, nor is it her fault what the House Republican Committee campaign committee does. She has no control over that. I've heard of people attacking her for saying that because the state party has this early convention coming up in April, that wasn't her call. That was the state committee's call. She has no ability to control that.
And it was a good idea. It was a good idea.
Could be.
It is.
I mean, I think there may be some motivation with doing that because the August convention will actually be comprising of the precinct delegates that are elected in the August election. And I think there's an element of the party that's afraid there's going to be a huge influx of new precinct delegates.
I don't agree with that argument. I thought that it made more sense with instead of fighting in the primaries at each other, they're going to fight on the same platform as the Democrats. It makes complete sense. You had Leonard that went after I can't even remember what the heck her name was now. The last election. And
it's true. It's basically an earlier primary, effectively an earlier convention. And two things can both be true. I mean, it would be good to have it earlier wrapped up or effectively wrapped up, but there's still
So they
may
can
also
go
be-
after the Democrats instead of going after each other. I mean, it makes complete sense. We have to be on the same playing field as the Democrats. The Democrats already had their nomination.
Yeah.
In April, we have to be on the same.
Well, the Democrats effectively had their nomination 4 years ago. So there is that.
I did want to say something else, though, and I've totally forgot now. So there goes.
Well, Michelle says the Dems do. We have to have more time to fight Dems instead of each other. Yeah, that's their talking point, and that's fair. It's certainly not, that is the argument. So there you go, folks. And anyway, all that's just to say.
Shootamaker. Thank you, Tony. It's Shootamaker.
Yeah. I like to pronounce it shite maker, but no, it's not. It's shoot maker.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Well, hey guys, we've been going a little over an hour, and I'm fine with calling it a night. We've done a lot. They've been going on 90 minutes, more than that even. But we did talk about a lot tonight, and I like these long format conversations. I listen to them when I drive all the time. I watch channels where they do 3 hours every single night, but I think most people don't. So go in the chat. Is any other questions or topics they want us to address? We're happy to.
Oh, redistricting.
When do we need to make sure we have the delegates on the ballot? Well, if you're talking about precinct delegates, the deadline for them doesn't change. The deadline for them is 2 weeks after the April filing deadline, which is I think the first Tuesday in May.
May 3rd.
May 3rd. There you go. The redistricting will affect which congressional district you are a precinct delegate in, and that will affect those of you in counties where the congressional district lines will be different. So you'll have some different people in the congressional districts. But that has no bearing on the filing deadline for precinct delegates. You have to be a precinct delegate in your precinct. All that changes is what congressional district you'll be in.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, hey guys, it's been great to see you all again, and I'm sure we'll have another show next week. And I hope to see you all at our fundraising event coming up. I keep saying 2 weeks. It's 1 week from this Thursday, so it's coming down the pike.
February 10th.
Cara, we've got Michonne Maddock, we've got Rob Steele coming, and we also have a live band. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow.
It's going to be in Westland, which is in Wayne County, so it's hopefully not too far from most people. And it's the first fundraising event we've ever done. So if you can make it, please RSVP early so we can plan for how much food we need. I know everyone likes to show up at the last minute and sign up at the last minute, but it makes it really tough for us. So please respond if you can. You can order your tickets at rescuemichigan.com. Also, by the way, I should mention that in February and March, we have 2 grassroots leadership schools coming up. These are much more in-depth training events than even what you get on this show. We have one in mid-February in Clinton Township in Macomb County.
February 19th.
One on February 19th and one on March 5th in Livonia. And tickets for that both of those events are also at rescuemichigan.com. Only $35 comes with a free lunch. And that's a good deal for a lot of education. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So, hey guys, thanks again for joining us. And thanks as always for all that you do for liberty. Until next time, peace out.